I had always been drawn to the places where light surrenders. The Blue Hole off Andros Island was one such place, a vertical cathedral of cobalt that descended into a darkness so complete it felt like falling into the pupil of God. I had read the warnings, the whispered tales from fishermen who refused to anchor near its rim, the stories of boats dragged beneath by something massive and ancient. They called it the Lusca, a creature born from the fevered imagination of island folklore, half octopus, half shark, all nightmare. But I didn't come to the Bahamas for reason. I came because something in my chest had been pulling me toward the water for months, a magnetic ache I couldn't name, couldn't ignore. It felt like homesickness for a place I'd never been. So when I stood at the edge of that perfect circle of deep blue, my wetsuit clinging to my skin, my breath already shallow with anticipation, I knew I wasn't diving to explore. I was diving to answer. The descent began in silence. 40 feet down, the water was still illuminated, still recognizable as the world I knew. Sunlight fractured into golden ribbons that danced across the limestone walls, and schools of silver jacks moved like mercury through the blue. But then the light began to fade. 60 feet, 80, the walls of the hole grew darker, encrusted with sponges that looked like lungs, breathing in the current. I checked my gauges, adjusted my buoyancy, and kept sinking. At 100 feet, the darkness swallowed me whole. My dive light became a single thread of consciousness in an abyss that had no floor, no ceiling, only depth. The pressure squeezed my ribcage like a lover's embrace, intimate and suffocating. I should have been afraid. I should have turned back. But the pull was stronger now, a current beneath the current, and I let it take me. That's when I felt it, not with my eyes, not even with my ears, but with some older sense, something primal, coiled at the base of my spine. A presence, massive, patient, waiting. I swept my light in a slow arc, and for a moment I saw nothing but the infinite black. Then, at the very edge of the beam, something moved. A ripple in the darkness, a shift in the pressure. And then, emerging from the void like a thought becoming flesh, it appeared. The Lusca. Its body was impossibly large, a muscular sack of mottled grey and deep purple that pulsed with bioluminescent veins, glowing faintly like the last embers of a drowned star. Its eyes, two orbs the size of dinner plates, reflected my light back at me with an intelligence that made my blood run cold. But it was the tentacles that held me frozen. 8 of them, each as thick as my torso, lined with suckers that glowed a pale, ghostly blue. They moved through the water with a grace that defied their size, curling and uncurling, tasting the space between us. One of them drifted toward me, slow as a question, and I realized with a shock that cut through my terror like lightning that I wasn't afraid. I was mesmerized. The tentacle brushed against my arm, and the sensation was unlike anything I had ever felt. It wasn't slimy or cold as I'd imagined. It was warm, almost feverishly so, and the suckers pulsed gently against my skin, a rhythm that matched my own heartbeat. The pressure was firm, but not painful, exploratory, intimate. It wrapped around my wrist, and I felt the strength in it. The raw power held in check by something that felt disturbingly like tenderness. Another tentacle rose from the depths, this one sliding along my thigh, and I gasped into my regulator, bubbles streaming toward a surface I could no longer see. Every nerve in my body was alight, firing signals my brain couldn't interpret. Danger, desire, recognition. The Lusca pulled me closer, not violently, but with the patience of something that had been waiting for centuries. I floated into the space between its tentacles, surrounded, cradled, and I understood with a clarity that terrified me that this was not an attack. This was a greeting. This was communion. Its eyes never left mine. In their dark, fathomless depths, I saw something I hadn't expected, loneliness, the kind that comes from existing in a place so removed from the world of light and air and voices that even the memory of connection becomes myth. The Lusca had been alone in this hole for longer than I could fathom, a legend to the surface world, a ghost story told to keep children from the water's edge. But down here in the crushing dark, it was real, and it was alone. And somehow it recognized in me the same hollow ache. I don't know how long we stayed like that, suspended in the abyss, its tentacles moving over my body in patterns that felt almost like language. Time lost meaning. My air supply became irrelevant. All that existed was the warmth of its touch, the gentle pressure, the way it seemed to be reading me, memorizing me, claiming me in a way that had nothing to do with violence and everything to do with possession. And here, in this moment of impossible intimacy, I wonder if you feel it too, that pull toward the unknown, toward the places where myths breathe and the water holds secrets older than memory. What do you think the Lusca truly is? A monster or something lonelier? A predator or a guardian of thresholds we're too afraid to cross? Leave your thoughts below. Tell me what you would do if you felt its touch in the dark, because I think deep down we all long to be known by something vast and ancient, even if it terrifies us. One of the tentacles slid up to my face, and with a gentleness that made my chest ache, it touched my cheek through my mask. The sucker pulsed once, twice, and I felt a surge of something that wasn't quite thought, wasn't quite emotion, but something in between. Images flooded my mind. Shipwrecks resting on the seafloor like cathedrals of rust and bone. Storms seen from below, the surface world churning in fury while the depths remained still. And then, impossibly, I saw myself, floating above the hole, small and fragile and luminous. A single point of light in an ocean of dark. The Lusca had been watching me long before I descended. It had known I was coming. It had called me here. The realization should have horrified me, but instead it filled me with a strange, broken kind of joy. To be wanted by something so powerful, so utterly other, felt like vindication, like proof that the ache in my chest had a source, a destination, an answer. But the ocean is not kind to those who seek answers. My gauge beeped, a shrill intrusion of the rational world. Low air. I had maybe 10 minutes before I would have to ascend or die down here in the arms of this impossible creature. The Lusca seemed to sense my distress. Its tentacles tightened, not painfully, but with a desperation that mirrored my own. It didn't want to let me go. And God help me, I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay in the dark, wanted to shed my tank and my mask and my fragile human need for air, wanted to dissolve into the water and become something that could live here, in the spaces between light and oblivion, wrapped in the embrace of a myth made flesh. But my body betrayed me, my lungs burned, my head grew light, the edges of my vision began to blur, and I knew if I didn't ascend now, I never would. I reached out with my free hand and pressed my palm against the smooth, pulsing skin of the Lusca's mantle. It shuddered beneath my touch, and the bioluminescence in its veins flared bright, bathing us both in a cold, beautiful light. For a moment, we existed in a universe of our own making, two creatures from different worlds, meeting in the only place where such a meeting was possible. Then, slowly, with a reluctance that felt like grief, the tentacles began to unwind. They slid away from my body one by one, leaving trails of warmth on my skin, and I felt the loss of each one like a small death. The last tentacle lingered on my wrist, the suckers pulsing in a rhythm that I knew I would feel for the rest of my life. Then it too released me, and I was alone in the dark, drifting, weightless, mourning something I had only just discovered. I began my ascent, slow and controlled, though every instinct screamed at me to turn back, to descend again, to find the creature that had seen me so completely. I looked down once, and in the fading glow of my light I saw it watching me. Its eyes followed my ascent, unblinking, and I understood with a certainty that carved itself into my bones that I would never be free of this. The Lusca had marked me, claimed me, and no matter how far I swam toward the light, part of me would always remain in the dark, wrapped in its tentacles, held in its ancient, impossible longing. When I broke the surface, gasping and shaking, the sun was blinding. The world of air and noise and color felt like a betrayal, a pale imitation of the truth I had touched in the depths. I hauled myself onto the boat, peeled off my gear, and sat on the deck staring at the blue hole as it returned to its perfect, unbroken blue. To anyone watching, I had completed a dive, but I knew better. I had been changed, remade. And as I sat there, feeling the phantom pressure of those tentacles on my skin, I realized that the ocean had given me what I had been searching for. Not answers, not closure, but connection. The kind that doesn't ask for understanding, only for surrender. If this story has touched something in you, if you felt that same pull toward the places where myths breathe and the deep waters call, then let this moment be a thread between us. Press the like button, not as a gesture, but as a pact. Subscribe so that we can continue to dive together into these stories that live in the spaces between fear and desire, where the ocean holds us and the dark things love us back. Because these tales are not just mine, they are ours. And the Lusca is still waiting down in the blue for the next soul brave enough to answer. I still dream of the descent. I still feel the warmth of its touch, the way it wrapped around me like it had been waiting forever. And sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet and the loneliness creeps in, I stand at the edge of the water and I wonder, if I dove again, would it remember me? Would it take me deeper this time, past the point of return, into the place where light dies and only sensation remains? I think I know the answer. I think I've always known. The Lusca doesn't forget, and neither do I. We are bound now, across the threshold of sea and myth, predator and prey, lover and legend. And the water, patient and eternal, waits for the day I return.